Okay, so you own a casino. Congratulations. You now control the only business on earth where mathematics guarantees you win. The house edge never sleeps, never takes a day off, and quietly harvests a percentage of every dollar that crosses your floor. On paper, you have the most reliable revenue mechanism in commerce. So why do casino operators keep collapsing, getting fined into oblivion, and losing the one thing they can't replace? Because the math is the easy part. Everything wrapped around the math is a permanent grinding fight. And by the end of this, you'll understand why owning a casino means owning a business where a guaranteed profit engine sits inside a machine designed to punish you for the smallest mistake. Let's start with the thing that actually terrifies casino owners. And it isn't a losing streak at the tables. It's the license. Because here's the structural trap of this industry. You don't really own a casino. You own permission to operate one, and that permission can be taken away. Every other business owner in the world owns an asset they can run as they see fit. A casino owner holds a privilege granted by a regulator. Renewable, conditional, and revocable. Your billion-dollar building is worth a fraction of its value the moment the state says you can no longer run games inside it. Think about what that means for your risk profile. You can have full occupancy, perfect margins, and a beloved brand, and still lose everything because a regulator decided you failed a compliance test. And regulators have become extraordinarily aggressive. The modern casino is legally treated a lot like a financial institution, because functionally it is one. Enormous volumes of cash move through it daily, from customers all over the world, which makes it a natural target for money laundering. So casinos are subject to strict anti-money laundering rules, know your customer requirements, and suspicious activity reporting obligations. And when they fall short, the penalties are staggering. In Australia, Crown Resorts was hit with a record fine of around $300 million, rooted in chronic anti-money laundering breaches. In the UK, William Hill received a penalty of roughly £19.2 million in 2023, the largest fine in British gambling history at the time. In the United States, MGM Resorts was fined $8.5 million in 2025 over anti-money laundering compliance failures, and Caesars faced a multi-million-dollar penalty over Know Your Customer failures. Across the industry, the first half of 2025 alone saw roughly $160 to $168 million in regulatory penalties worldwide, spread across dozens of separate enforcement actions in multiple countries. Sit with that for a moment, because it reframes the entire business. You are running an operation where the government requires you to police your own customers. You must know who they are, where their money came from, and whether their behavior is suspicious. And you must do this while those same customers are the source of all your revenue. Every incentive in your business says, take the money. Every regulation says, interrogate it. That tension is permanent. It's expensive, and getting it wrong doesn't just cost you a fine. It costs you the license, and with it, everything. So you build a compliance department. And this is the first great unglamorous cost of casino ownership. An entire internal bureaucracy that generates zero revenue and exists purely to keep you legal. Compliance offices, transaction monitoring systems, reporting infrastructure, audits, legal counsel, and training. It's a permanent tax on the business. It grows every year as rules tighten, and its only measurable output is the absence of catastrophe. You will never have a good quarter because compliance did well. You will only ever have a ruinous one because it didn't. And the standards keep moving. Regulators worldwide have shifted from reactive enforcement to proactive oversight, coordinating internationally and expanding what they expect operators to monitor. A compliance program that satisfied auditors 5 years ago may be inadequate today, which means the system you built and paid for has to be rebuilt and repaid for repeatedly on someone else's schedule. Many operators are still running on legacy technology never designed for real-time transaction monitoring, and upgrading it is a multi-million-dollar project that generates no new customers whatsoever. Now let's talk about the second thing that makes this business miserable, and it's the one nobody in the industry likes discussing openly. Your most profitable customers are often your most vulnerable ones. The economics of gambling are heavily weighted toward a small number of people who lose a great deal of money. That's not a moral accusation, it's the arithmetic of the industry. And modern regulators have decided, increasingly firmly, that casinos bear responsibility for that. Operators are now required to implement responsible gambling safeguards, honor self-exclusion programs where a person bans themselves from the property, and intervene when someone shows signs of harm. Failing to do so brings its own penalties. Flutter Entertainment, for instance, was penalized $3.7 million over inadequate problem gambling interventions, and UK operators have been fined millions for social responsibility failures. So consider the position this puts an owner in. You have built a building engineered from carpet to ceiling to keep people inside, playing longer. No windows, no clocks, comps designed to extend visits. And you are simultaneously legally obligated to identify the people who are staying too long, losing too much, and hurting themselves, and to stop them. You are required to turn away the very revenue your architecture was designed to capture. And you have to do it accurately. Refuse service to someone who isn't actually at risk, and you've insulted a paying customer and possibly lost them forever. Fail to intervene with someone who is, and you're facing a regulator, a lawsuit, and a headline. There's no formula that resolves this cleanly, because you're being asked to make judgment calls about human behavior at scale, thousands of times a night, with penalties attached to getting it wrong in either direction. This isn't just a compliance headache. It's a fundamental contradiction sitting at the heart of your business model, and you have to manage it every single day, forever, under regulatory scrutiny and public criticism. Then there's the reputational exposure, which compounds all of this. A casino is one of the most politically visible businesses there is. Public inquiries into casino conduct have made national news in multiple countries, exposing internal failures in humiliating detail and triggering license suspensions. Once regulators and the press are looking at you, they don't stop. Your industry is permanently one scandal away from tighter rules, higher taxes, or an outright political campaign against it. Some jurisdictions have gone further still, writing laws that let authorities revoke gaming concessions outright for reasons ranging from unpaid taxes to national security concerns. In markets where a government issues only a handful of licenses for an entire city, losing yours doesn't just close your property. It hands your position to a competitor, and there may be no way to ever get it back. No amount of house edge protects you from a legislature deciding your tax rate should go up, and gaming taxes are already brutal, taking a huge share off the top before you've paid a single employee. And that brings us to the daily operational grind, the part that makes owning a casino exhausting rather than merely risky. Your building runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It never closes, which means staffing never stops. A large property employs thousands of people across every shift, and turnover in hospitality and gaming is relentless. You are perpetually hiring, training, and replacing. Your surveillance operation is enormous, with a dedicated department watching cameras around the clock, because you are simultaneously guarding against cheating customers, dishonest employees, and outright theft. You handle staggering amounts of physical cash, which requires its own security, logistics, and insurance. Cards get swapped out constantly to prevent marking. Chips have to be inventoried and controlled, and every table, cage, and doorway is a potential point of loss. The scale of internal control required is closer to a bank than a bar, and it exists entirely to protect a margin measured in single-digit percentages. You serve alcohol to people losing money, which produces fights, falls, and lawsuits, and casinos face liability claims at rates that keep premiums climbing. Now, stack the financial structure on top of all of it. Casinos are enormously capital intensive and most are built with debt. That debt doesn't care about your compliance costs, your tax rate, or a bad quarter. It demands payment on schedule. This is the mechanism behind nearly every famous casino bankruptcy. An operator borrows heavily to build something spectacular, then discovers that the guaranteed house edge produces a guaranteed top line, but not a guaranteed bottom line, because taxes, payroll, compliance, insurance, and interest consume most of it. Out of every dollar of gaming revenue, the large majority is gone before it reaches the owner. And unlike almost any other business, you cannot fix a bad year by raising prices. The house edge is fixed by the rules of the games and by regulation. You physically cannot charge more. Think about how strange that constraint is. A restaurant facing rising costs raises menu prices. A hotel raises room rates. A casino cannot raise the house edge on blackjack because costs went up. Your margin per bet is locked in, set by mathematics and law, while every expense around it inflates freely. That's the vice. Guaranteed revenue, ungovernable costs, and no pricing power whatsoever. So let's answer the real question. Why does owning a casino suck when the math is on your side? Because the math was never the hard part. The hard part is that you don't own the business. You rent permission to operate it from a regulator who can revoke it. The hard part is that you're legally required to police the customers who fund you and penalized when you fail. The hard part is a compliance apparatus that costs a fortune and produces nothing but the absence of disaster in an industry that absorbed over $160 million in fines in half a year. The hard part is running a building that never closes, staffed by thousands, watched by cameras and by the press, taxed heavily, financed with debt, and priced by rules you cannot change. The house always wins. That part is true, and it will stay true. But the house is also permanently on trial, permanently leveraged, permanently staffed, and permanently one enforcement action away from losing the only thing that made it a house in the first place. The gambler at your table is risking money. You're risking the license, and unlike the gambler, you don't get to walk away from the table when the night goes badly. You open again in the morning because you never actually closed.